This week on To the Contrary.
There are more women members and a more diverse Congress than ever before, and a woman serving an historic second term as Speaker of the House of Representatives. What will that mean for women and families? Then, the impact of sexual harassment and pay inequity charges on a possible Bernie Sanders presidential run.
Erbé, welcome to the Contrary, a discussion of news and social trends from diverse perspectives. Up first, the new Congress.
Congress gavelled into session this week with a record number of women in the House of Representatives and a historic second term for Nancy Pelosi as House Speaker.
I'm particularly proud to be the woman Speaker of the House of this Congress, which marks the 100th year of women having the right to vote.
Pelosi easily won the vote for House Speaker and immediately got down to business. Women are 23% of all members, up from 19% last year. We spoke with some female freshmen and women leaders of the House about their goals for 2019.
What is so beautiful and exciting and challenging is that the class is so diverse that there's not one voice. You've got different people with different priorities.
Of the 35 female freshmen, 34 are Democrats. Among that group is Veronica Escobar, the first Latina from Texas in the U.S. House. Escobar says even though there will be a record number of women, she wants to make it clear women aren't a monolith.
Too many folks think that because of the diversity or because of all the women, even all the women are not going to see eye to eye on every issue.
Escobar represents El Paso. She has many issues to address for her constituents.
Healthcare is something I heard about at the doorstep over and over and over again. In addition to healthcare, finally getting to the important discussion of comprehensive immigration reform and addressing these challenges that we have instead of what the administration is doing now, which is creating more problems. Taking care of the planet, gun safety. A quarter of our jobs are linked to trade, so there's a lot happening.
Florida Representative Donna Shalala was former Secretary of Health and Human Services under President Clinton. So as she says, she may be a freshman, but she's not a rookie. Shalala says she's ready for a fight, and health care is a major part of her agenda.
We want to cut the cost of prescription drugs. We want to do something about sensible gun control. We've got a lot of environmental work to do. There are no climate deniers in South Florida. We all know that the environment are life and death for our community.
Shalala is also ready to take on immigration policy.
So it's very important that we have safe borders. There's no question about that. But simultaneously, those countries that they're fleeing are falling apart, literally, from a justice point of view, from an economic point of view, and the United States ought to be investing in humanitarian aid. We've got to do something to prevent the drugs from coming into the United States simultaneously.
Representative Susan Wild of Pennsylvania has some other priorities.
I have very enthusiastically signed on to what will be H.R. 1, which is Congressman Sarbanes' act, part of which is aimed at restoring a full Voting Rights Act, and that's a critical issue in our district. School funding, which is primarily a statewide issue, but there is definitely it has a component at the federal level.
California Representative Katie Hill is considered a pragmatic progressive, although she prefers not to be labeled. Hill points out 70% of the new class members have never been in elected office. She was the executive director of the largest homeless services organization in California.
The lens of healthcare, mental health, substance abuse, affordable housing, poverty and income inequality, all of those tie together in impacting homelessness and increasing it in our communities. And so I bring that sort of lens to Congress to look at how people who are the most vulnerable in our communities, who are the most disenfranchised, how are our policies impacting them.
Hill supported House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So did Representative Escobar, who says many freshmen want to see more bench strength and future leaders coming from the younger ranks.
I would like for all of us to have avenues to leadership. I want us all to be mentored. I want, I want to learn from the veterans who've been here for a long time in the trenches, fighting these battles and working hard. But it's going to take a lot of direction from her, I think, and a plan to create that pipeline.
Representative Sherry Bustos was the first woman elected to Congress from her district in 2012. She's now the head of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. She says Democrats who took back the House of Representatives this year will need a strategy to keep those seats in 2 years.
It is now very important that we run a world-class political arm of the House Democrats. Absolutely imperative. We've got to take a look at every single district in this country. That's what we intend to do. Every battlefield will be protected and contested. That will be our role. What the American public called for is that we do work for the people, that we put the people first.
So, Congresswoman Norton, how will all these new women and this new diverse class change Congress?
The new women will make a huge difference, but there's a wake-up call for Republicans. Only one Republican woman was added. That's a danger to the Republican Party itself.
I think the women have a chance to maybe bring a new way of doing things. The fact that 70% of them never held elective office is going to be very interesting. That may have more impact on the system than even being women.
My money is on the young progressive women building a true pipeline for justice in the future.
For me, it's all about Speaker Pelosi. She's back, and she's going to change the way things are done, I think. She's going to be different this time.
How?
She's going to help strategize. Like there was a mention, who was it? I think Congresswoman Hill said, or maybe in your voiceover, you said that Democrats need a strategy. And that's it. How are you going to hold on to these seats? Republicans got confident. I remember the Fire Pelosi banner that was unrolled from the NRCC nearly a decade ago is when they unrolled it. And I would walk by it as a young Hill staffer and think to myself, yeah, how are they going to get rid of her? Well, they did, and now she's back. So what are you going to do now? She's like Teflon, She's pretty impermeable. I think she's going to be great.
She's kind of like Teflon, except I think she gets an awful lot of grief being as elegant, as intelligent, as charismatic, and as capable as she is because of her gender.
That's right. That's right.
Her ratings are lower than Trump's.
It's electrifying.
I do believe that's sexism, American style.
Well, Schumer's are too. So
she knows how to use power, like no one else.
And she's
in
a
this
big
country.
threat to people who oppose her politically.
Absolutely, and it is just amazing and so pleasurable to watch her walk in like the boss that she is. For example, when President Trump tried to insult her, Mr. President, please don't try to characterize the strength I bring to this meeting.
Okay.
I mean, she's just amazing.
But you also support, as you mentioned just now, people like Ocasio-Cortez, who are going to give her a hard time and really make her job much more difficult than really some of the Republicans. So some Democrats wish that wing of the party would just shut up and go away.
The Democratic Party is not a monolith, and progressives are not a monolith.
No party is.
No party is a monolith. And it's wonderful that there are people who are going to exert pressure from the left, and I absolutely stand with the young women who are doing that work, and I think it's fantastic. Look, I think that Speaker Pelosi is not necessarily burdened by that group, that it's an asset to her. It helps her move the center of what she can push for.
Well, the Speaker, the last time she was Speaker, we had only 4 short years with her speakership, and look at all she got accomplished. It was an extraordinary time.
We should point out she single-handedly, more than President Obama, is responsible for the Affordable Care Act.
Of the Affordable Care Act, and that was only one of her strategic wins. She's not to be underestimated. And I'm not at all troubled by the fact that there's some young progressives. That's what they're supposed to be. But our party has always been diverse. We have conservative Republicans, Democrats. We've always had far-left Democrats. She handled those before. She'll handle them again because that's what she's good at.
All right, what's going to happen now that couldn't have happened before all these women were added to the House in the last
because
election?
we control the House.
Tell me what specifically.
Okay, we control the House. So that means that bills that you couldn't think of passing, you're going to see gun control bills passed. You're going to see
by the Senate as well?
No, well, wait a minute. That's not how it works.
By the House.
You're going to see it work in the House. The Senate is a body that doesn't get anything done anyway. You will then see all kinds of things try to happen.
Of course, the president would veto.
Well, that is right. But what the Democrats have to do while they have the power is to get things through the House, then go into 2020 and dare the Republicans to put up somebody who can beat whoever is going to be the Democratic nominee.
We look forward to it. She actually only won by about 3 votes, won the speakership. It was close. It was not an overwhelming. I want to know where the 24 people who opposed her on the Democratic side. I want to see what committees they end up on and what kind of seniority they end up with.
I was thinking the same thing. What are the penalties going to be here?
She is tough. I mean, she's a tough politico and rules with an iron fist, and it's going to be interesting.
There's going to be penalties behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
She's tough that way.
She
is very good with the purse. She holds the purse for these Democrats, and actually that's...
You mean in terms of fundraising
for
their re-election?
They all need it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, actually, that's a bit of old
apparently
news.
She doesn't need her help, or she wouldn't be coming up against her the way she is.
Well, to your point earlier about AOC and others challenging Pelosi, or rather saying that there was a whole crop, I think, of Democrats who were elected this time saying that they would not vote for her for Speaker. She made them fall in line. AOC was one of them, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She fell in line quite early, and she gave her support to the Speaker. So she knows how to whip him, and she whips him.
Did she vote for her Speaker?
She did. And there's a whole crop of young women. So back to the issue of what these young progressive women are going to do. I'm still a conservative. I like to think I'm a more moderate Republican, but I think it's great what they're doing. Lauren Underwood, Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. These women, to me, represent a sort of new era, a breath of fresh air. They're going to join forces with people like Congresswoman Norton, and they're going to learn. They're going to learn the ropes because these women are smart.
All right, but let's get into specifics. You talked about before the show, you told me about a bill you have that would allow breastfeeding spaces in the Capitol, building.
What happened was we got word from the leadership. There are some bills that should be easy bills. Let's try to get them passed. I have one. It's a breastfeeding bill. If you go into a federal building now, there's not private space you can go to breastfeed. I think that can pass the House and the Senate. Who's going to be against motherhood and breastfeeding?
Okay, but that is small. So anything
but
major?
That's what they were looking for. No, they were looking for small bills. See,
what about traffic funding?
This is very strategic, Bonnie. They're not looking to say, let's go for gun control first. They're looking for things that can bring the party together first and then build up to having shown your strength and having shown progressives and more conservative Democrats that we can work together.
How about the rule that allows the wearing of hats and headdresses? It did change, but I'm saying I want your responses to it.
I love what Congresswoman Ilhan Omar had to say from Minnesota. As somebody that really cares about personal choice, she tweeted about how it's her personal choice to wear that hijab. I thought it was a beautiful response. Everybody should read that, and it makes complete sense for the rules on the House floor.
Nobody thinks it's going to be divisive to have all these, to engage religion at the height of democracy, where it all comes down on the floor. To have that won't be more of a separation signal to the American public?
What kind of democracy would we be if we compelled her to take it off? That just because she's on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives?
Well, it's not just her. It's all kinds of hats that have been banned.
It's
yarmulkes. It's yarmulke. It includes yarmulkes.
We've had women to want to wear hats on the floor before. They were told they couldn't wear hats on the floor, but you're right. You can't tell somebody you can't wear.
And I think they should wear the yarmulkes too, as well.
There are women who see the headdress as something that may be fine in somebody else's religion, but it sets American women back to dress like that.
But what about the freedom of expression?
What about the freedom of moving forward without having women turn against you and try to set women back? That's not an
How is this
advancement for women.
This is part of their religion.
She
it's part
doesn't
of their
have a
culture.
husband who's compelling her to wear it, which is kind of funny.
I think arguing it on the individual level is wrong. I mean, what we're really talking about is systematically excluding a certain group of women from being eligible to serve in public service and to be in public spaces. And so I think, well, I absolutely think it's wonderful that she wrote the essay and support her in her choices and what she says about her lived experience. The reality is a policy like that is systematically excluding a group of women. And so this is an issue of equality and fairness, plain and simple.
But some people see it as the wall between church and state, a couple more bricks being taken out.
And if the wall comes down there, then yarmulkes and other things that are really just
yarmulkes
should be allowed.
They are allowed under the same bill that allowed the hijabs.
And they should.
But
again, this is culture following law. The rule change, we'll see what happens if this helps soften the culture, maybe.
All right. Let us know what you think. Please follow me on Twitter at Bonnie Erbé or at To the Contrary. From Capitol Hill to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
As senators took their oaths of office this week, there was already talk that at least 9 of them are considering a run for president in 2020. Among them is Bernie Sanders, who faces allegations of mistreatment of women campaign staffers and gender pay disparities. In a letter to the Vermont senator, women said their complaints were ignored or brushed aside. The Vermont senator has apologized and pledged to do better. Also this week, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren launched her Presidential Exploratory Committee.
Rina, what will this do to his bid? Let's start with Sanders, and then we'll get to Warren. What will it do to his bid? There are Democrats who think he's not very pro-women.
His bid was already tired before the story came out. And I don't mean to be ageist at all, just because he's also growing older. But it's because he's been there, done that. And I don't think he's somebody who could take on Trump. Now, with these reports of sexual misconduct and harassment and in his campaign, I'm a former political operative. I can tell you it happens. It happens often. I've been somebody who's had to deal with it.
In all campaigns, you're saying?
In all campaigns. It doesn't matter whether they're left or right. There are women who've been through it, whether it's a caress that's been, caressed too long, a hand, a remark, anything. And I think the senator's response to it was inadequate. I don't think he demonstrates any sort of remorse for this happening in his campaign. And I'm a little bit surprised because there are women that if you go to my Twitter page, you see me sitting next to Winnie Wong from People for Bernie, and Nomiki Konst is a friend. She was a delegate for Bernie. I thought there were women who really loved this guy and believed in him as a champion for women. So I was a bit surprised.
Now, this is a real setback because this is a man who fancies himself a progressive. The fact is, and we all thought of him as a progressive. Yeah. I don't buy this notion, it happens in all campaigns. This is much more serious. This is a group of women who said, we have brought this to the attention of the candidate and done nothing about it, and we're going public now. Sure. He's going to have to do more than say, I'm sorry. He didn't pay attention to it, and I think it sends a wake-up call to all of these men and women who are running for president. You all better look deeply at yourselves.
Is it going to change any minds of young Democratic progressive women, voters?
There are a number of young Democratic progressive women who already look at Bernie with a great deal of shade. I mean, this is the exact same man who stood up on that stage with Hillary Clinton and wagged his finger at her. There was the phenomenon of Bernie bros.
But there also were a lot of young women who, I don't know what his support was broken down by gender, but there are a lot. So are they going to see this and change their minds?
Well, Bernie is frankly, he's a relic of the past, Bonnie. I mean, Bernie Sanders, his time expired a long time ago. He's part of the reason that we have Donald Trump in the presidency today. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that women are important. I mean, this is the same person who, as a candidate, poo-pooed identity politics. He suggested that reproductive rights were optional for a progressive platform, and he fashions himself as more progressive than now. He's not.
Well, I find myself agreeing with the Democrats on this panel, which is pretty scary. But I think he is a relic of the past. He's great to have around because he'll still create mischief that will benefit us. So stay in there, Bernie. Hang in there.
But what concerns me is that he doesn't seem to care. It's a lack of care for the fact that these women were mistreated.
He offended, right.
Yeah, and then the reproductive rights being an option. Come on, Bernie.
The murmurs have always been from women who've dealt with him, whom I've talked to over many years, that he is a sexist.
I wish he'd just sit down, and just say, look, I'm not in it anymore. I tried it. I didn't work. Somebody else. I'll help whoever wants to come up. But again, that's
he's looking at it saying, I don't have much time. I better do it now.
Egos are big in politics.
Can't wait 4 years. Now, Erin, to Elizabeth Warren, does she have any chance of getting the nomination?
I think she does. I think she's a serious candidate, and I say that as somebody who attends Netroots Nation every year, which is the largest conference, thousands of progressives, and people have been holding up signs begging her to run for president since 2014 when I started attending. I think she's got a base of support that is real and something to be reckoned with. I think that she is an intellectual force within the progressive movement and has really provided the underpinning of many ideas. So I do think she's a real serious contender.
But she's mainly known for her action in the consumer area and her attentiveness to those issues. What about things like where is she on choice? Where is she on immigration? Where is she? She's just not, her positions aren't well known yet, right?
She's certainly got more to do in terms of getting the word out and connecting with people. But, this is the exact same person who Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said she was warned, she was given an explanation. Nevertheless, she persisted after she attempted to read a letter from Coretta Scott King on the floor when Jeff Sessions was nominated for Attorney General. So she has been there and she has gone to the mat as somebody who works in reproductive health rights and justice. She's gone to the mat for us on those issues. And so I do think she's a progressive through and through.
Well, she sees her weakness, and that's why she's out in front first. She saw it with her claim to have Indian ancestry. She saw it when her star rose in the last contest, presidential contest, and seems to have been diminished. She sees it in the 20 or 25 people who are running for Senate. So she did something very smart. She's raised a lot of money. She got out here first. She's first on the track. She's very strategic. She's very smart. And I think that her progressive politics, because she has plowed this ground early, will help her in a presidential contest.
I want her to run so desperately. And I do want to say, this may sound shocking, especially my Republican friends out there, she is the most credible of all the senators that are trying to run. She's much more credible than any other women that are trying to run. I think she does have a greater brain power than most of the ones that the Democrats are.
Critical question, how would she do against Trump in a debate?
It'd be interesting. On her optics and the way she comes across, she needs some media training. She doesn't come across well. She comes across sort of whiny and professorial. So I think from that standpoint, he'd take her part in the debates. And I wish he'd stop calling her Pocahontas, because she really is Pocahontas, not Pocahontas.
Pocahontas?
Pocahontas, meaning it was false. Her claims did not hold up.
How about no name calling?
Yeah,
because this is the first president
that probably would be
history who has taken name calling to a 6-year-old level.
Best, but the point is, I actually do think that she is one of the more credible of the Democrats that could come forward.
I mean, Trump had
Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand.
Warren's much better. Much better.
It just. I need a minute, because you're talking about credibility. Trump had the lowest of it all, so I don't really care who the Democrats put up, except for that it's got to be somebody who has the staying power to outlast Trump in all of the little stuff he's going to go after, because he goes at it little by little, and he goes very low, as Michelle Obama said. So somebody's going to be able to have to put up with that. And I subscribe to the whole notion that you put like and like together, so you get an older white male with
Joe Biden.
Yeah, I think Joe Biden would be great against Trump. I know that some of my Democrat friends disagree. They think that Biden is something, similar to Bernie in some ways. He's tired, and he's, again, not about a physical thing.
Well, you can't say he's tired. You can say he's old.
It's not a physical thing.
But he's not tired. He's very energetic.
Tired in that, it's been tried before. It's somebody who's been there, done that. That's exactly why I think Trump was able to capture really the hearts and minds of many Americans, is because he was able to convince them that he could be something new, a breath of fresh air, right? Biden's already been in the residence before. So, this guy is if you ask me, that would make it tough for him to take on Trump. But I think he's got the ability to hit back at Trump in a way that I don't think Elizabeth Warren does.
So he'll defeat Warren in the primaries, is what you're thinking?
Well, I don't want to think about the primaries. I'm thinking all the way out to the general, and I just think that a woman can't do it this time. And I really don't mean to be sexist about that, because I believe women can do anything. But I think when it comes to really convincing voters, you give them the option, you put like on like, you give them a hard choice, and it comes down to principles and values.
All right, and the primaries are going to be quite some zoo this year. At least 20 on the Democratic side, and probably 2 or 3 on the Republican side. That's it for this edition. Please follow me on Twitter and visit our website, pbs.org/tothecontrary. And whether you agree or think to the contrary, see you next week.